Okay, Negaim, Vav. Said Ben Shimon, when is this true? When it's exactly the size of a lentil? If it was larger than a lentil, the extra area is a symptom of its expansion for the inner negative, and the outer one is tame. If it contains a dull white blemish smaller than a lentil, it is a symptom of expansion for the inner one, but not for the outer one. There are 24 extremities on the body that do not become tummy because of mikya. The tips of the fingers and the toes, the tips of the ears, the tips of the nose, the tips of the body, and the woman's nipples. Rabbi Yehuda says a man's nipples as well. Rabbi Elliot says that also warts and hanging skin do not become tummy because of mikya. These are the parts of the body that do not become tummy because of baharas. Inside the eye, inside the ear, inside the nose, or inside the mouth. In folds of skin or in folds of skin on the neck. Under the breast, the armpit, the sole of the foot, the nail, the head, the nail, the head, and the beard, a raw boil, burn, or wound, when a boil or wound, oh man, when a boil or a burn or a wound that are rebellious. The above mentioned parts do not become tummy because of Negaim. Do nor do they become with the Negaim, nor do they be combined with the Negaim, nor do the nega spread onto them, nor do they become tummy because of mikya, nor do they prevent it from having the status of turning completely white. If the head or beard becomes bald, or if the boil, burn, or wound develop the scab, they become tummy because of the Negaim, but not they. I'm sorry, I skipped over here. But skip a part, so no, because of the Gaim, but they are not combined with the Gaim. A negative cannot spread onto them, and they do not become tummy because of mikya. But they prevent the status of someone who turns completely white. The head, the beard before they have grown hair, the hanging skin on the head and the beard, or judged like the skin of the body.
Okay.
Okay.
Remember the first time we did this, I described these areas as like Switzerland. They don't count for nega, but they don't count against a nega either. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Elu beharos taharos. Now, here comes a listing of things that would otherwise have been classified as a baharis, but in fact are tahor, and we'll see why. Because they started out life as not as non nega, and then a halachic situation changed, but the nega stayed the same. So it doesn't suddenly become tameh. So, well, that's the general thread, the general context of the common thread, the common denominator between all of these things. Okay.
Okay.
If somebody had a nega before Matan Torah, and then and now we look at them now, that's not counted. Begoy, okay, Venice Gayer. So a non-Jew does not have negaim, which of course raises big questions on yesterday's Haftarah. Right? Did you follow the Haftarah yesterday?
Uh-huh.
Who was the who got
no, don't ask me that
yesterday?
No,
Okay.
don't ask me.
So Naaman was a Syrian general.
Right.
He was non-Jewish, and he got tsaras. So interesting questions like how does he get tsaras? Because goyim don't get tsaras. It's
Right.
not. It's not. If he did, it's not the same disease. Maybe that was actually leprosy that he had. I'm just using the same term. Okay. Anyway, a goy and this guy. So if a goy had a white patch on his skin, and then he finished his conversion, went to mikveh, and came out, and he still got a white patch on his skin, tahor. We don't view it. It only if it appeared after he converted. But katan v'nolad. So a baby is born, and you see immediately as the baby is born, he's got a white patch of skin. Inadmissible because you couldn't check him while he was in the womb, and therefore it's not counted. But kemet v'nigla. So there was a white patch inside a fold of fat skin, and then the person grew or the skin stretched out, whatever. It's lost weight, whatever the case, and now the white is visible. But rosh of a zakan, okay, with on the head or on the beard, b'shchin of a mikvah, or on a boil or a burn, of a kedach hamordin, or a weeping wound. Chazar harosh v'zakan nikrachu, and then the hair became bald in that spot, and now you can see the white. Okay, or they healed and became a scar. Okay, but the white was always there, so it's not a new thing, and therefore these are all tahor. Now, what happens if let's say you've got a young man, or even a baby who's still bald? Okay, so there's no hair on those places, or on a young man who doesn't yet have hair on his beard. So they now the hair grew and then the hair fell out again. So it started out with a nigger over there, and then it grew, and then the hair grew. So now it's no longer a nigger. Okay. So there was a nigger there, and then it became a burn or a boil or a weeping wound, and therefore the nigger was no longer a nigger, and then they healed. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Matame. So we have one Das Yachid who comes and says, it started out Tame, it finished Tame, it remains Tame. Okay? But Shetchilasan v'sofan Tame. Okay? V'chachamim Matarin. Chachamim say, since it went through a stage when it was no longer considered Tame, it loses its status as a nega, and it becomes tahor. Okay, nishtanu mar'ehen. What happens if the appearance, if the color? Now, this is actually, I think this is the first time we've actually seen enough kamina of those four colors that we said at the beginning of the Masechta. Okay, we said there were those four different colors. One is a derivative of the other. Okay, nishtanu mar'ehen. If the if the appearance changed, bein lahakel, bein lahachmir, whether it becomes a more stringent color or a more lenient color. Ketzed lahakel. Okay, how does it become more lenient? It was snow white, but now it says kasida heichal, and it became like the lime of the temple. Or katzemer lavan ukakrum beitza, now says misbach. Okay, now says misbachas es, and became like mispachas, like a mispachas. In other words, a lesser color.
Like an egg membrane.
Yeah, an egg membrane, right? Or mispachas aza. Okay, okay. So basically the color dimmed. Ketzad lahachmir, or the color intensified. Haisakakrum beitz v'nases katzem lavan. It was like a egg membrane, and then it became like white wool. Kasida heichal v'chashelig. It was like the lime, and then it became like snow. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Metaher. He says any change to the color of the nega indicates that what's happened is that this is no longer a nega. Now there are a few opinions here. Okay, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says the nega has lost its status as a nega. Okay, Rabbi Elazar Chisma Omer lahakel tahor ulahachmir ter ebatchila. If it became dimmer, then we declare it tahor. But if it became more intense, then we got to review this and look at it as a new nega. Okay, so he's slightly more machmir than Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Okay, Rabbi Akiva Omer bein lahakel bein lahachmir tereh v'tchila. He says, in all of these cases, review them. So Rabbi Akiva has the most stringent opinion, but even the most stringent opinion is saying that you don't leave this in its status of tame. You've got to review it again and see that this need to be. So in other words, even if he was muchlat, he had already been decided because of, let's say, a pisayon, it had expanded, and now the color changed. So Rabbi Akiva was going to look at it and say, okay, it's the same size as it was, but we're looking at this as a new nega. So now instead of being tame, he's now behesker. Although there's not really any difference between the two, because he already has to bring a korban from the previous one, and the only thing is that now he doesn't have to tear his clothes anymore. He can wear he can wear regular clothes again. Okay. Baheres v'ein baklum. If he's got a baheris and there's nothing inside the baheris, it's just the skin. But tchila b'sof shavua rishon. Okay, whether it's at the beginning or or after the first week of quarantine, Yaskir, he has to go back into quarantine. But Sof Shavosheni, if however he stays there for 2 weeks and nothing changed, La'achar Patur, or just stays there after he's been dismissed. Iftar, he stays um
Oh,
right, he stays to heart. Hold on, this is Baharis. Yeah, okay. Odehu Maskiro. Now that stuff we already knew. Now the Kohen is standing there looking at this nigger, and he's about to say, okay, I'm putting you back into quarantine, or I'm about to dismiss you and send you home after 2 weeks. Okay. V'noldu lo simane tuma. And while the Kohen's standing there, he suddenly sees the thing just crept a little bit bigger, or a white hair just popped up. Okay, the Kohen says, I was about to dismiss you, but now this is mukhlat. Sorry. Okay, Baheres uba simane tuma. Now, what happens if there's a Baheres and he sees that the simane tuma? Obviously, the Kohen's going to be machlit. He's going to say done. Or dehu machlito. He's about to say, I'm sorry, I'm about to contaminate you. V'halchulahin simane tuma. The white hair fell out, or the nega shrank back to its original size. But chila b'sof shavua rishon yaskir. So if it's at the beginning or if it's at the end of the first week, then you must go into quarantine. B'sof shavua sheni la'achar apatur iftar, and if it's and otherwise he gets dismissed and sent home after 2 weeks. Okay.
okay. And we are at Dalit Aleph.
Yep.
There are stringencies that apply to white hair, which do not apply to expansion, and there are stringencies that apply to expansion, which do not apply to white hair. White hair renders tuma initially, renders tame with any shade of white, and has no symptoms whereby it is tahu. There are stringencies that apply to expansion, and expansion renders tame with any amount. Renders all Negaim tame, and renders tame when it is spread outside the nega, which is not the case with white hairs. There are stringencies that apply to living skin, which do not apply to expansion. These are stringencies that apply to expansion, which do not apply to living skin. Living skin renders tummy initially and renders tummy with any appearance. There are stringencies that apply to expansion. Expansion renders tummy with any amount and renders only guy of tummy and renders tummy outside the nega, which is not the case with living skin. There are stringencies that apply to white hair, which do not apply to living skin, and there are stringencies that apply to living skin, which do not apply to white hair. White hair renders a boiled nega, and a boiled nega tame burned nega Thomas renders tummy, whether together or spread apart, whether surrounded or not. There are stringencies that apply to living skin. Living skin renders tummy on a bald area or either on the back or the front of the head. Whether changed by the nega or not prevents one who turns completely white from becoming tahor and renders tummy with any appearance, which is not the case with white skin. Okay.
Ohalos.
Okay. We have Yud Gimel. If the hive is sitting at its bottom and it's a stencil and there's a tumor below, inside, or above the hive, tumor penetrates upward or downward. If the hive is a handbreadth above the ground and it's covered or is upside down and there is tumor below, inside or above the hive, everything becomes tummy. In what cases supply? When the hide is a utensil. However, if the tie was broken and stuffed with straw, or if it contains 40 saw, according to the sages, and there is tumor below, inside or above the hide, tumor penetrates upward and downward. Rav Elias said, and Rav Shimon say, tumor does not enter the hide, it does not descend from it. If the hide is a handbreadth above the ground and there is tumor beneath it, what is underneath it, it becomes tummy. And if the tumor is inside or above, utensils directly above the tumor up to the sky become tummy. A crypt that is wide at the bottom and narrow at the top contains a corpse. Someone who touches the lower part remains tahor, whereas someone who touches the upper part becomes tummy. If the crypt is wide at the top and now toward the bottom, someone who touches any part of it becomes tummy. If the crypt is the same width from top or bottom, someone who touches any part of it becomes tummy. These are the words of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yeshua says someone who touches from a handbreadth or below remains tahor, from a handbreadth or above becomes tummy. If the crypt is made similar to a chest, someone who touches it anywhere on the side becomes tummy. If it is made like glucose, someone who touches it anywhere remains tahor, except at the place where it opens.
Okay.
Okay.
Kalim.
They saved all the hard ones for the one time. All the hard ones go at this one sec, one time. Like this. Okay, we have a Dalit, Zion Dalit. If the courtyard was separate from the stove when it is 3 fingerprints high, it can take tracks two of via contact and via airspace, but it is less than this, or if it was flat, it is tahor. The feet of a stove, three fingerprints contact two via contact and via airspace, but if they're less than this, then they are certainly tummy, and even when they are 4. If one of the feet were removed, the remaining feet contract tumor via contact, but do not contract tumor via airspace. These are the words of Reb Meir and Reb Shimon moves in Tahoe. If he made 2 feet, one opposite the other, they contract tumor via contact and via airspace. These are the words of Reb Meir. Reb Shimon moves in Tahoe, and if they were higher than 3 fingerprints, then from 3 fingerprints and downward, they contract tumor via contact via airspace, and from 3 fingerprints and upward, they contract tumor via contact, but not through contact tumor via airspace. These are the words of Reb Meir. Reb Shimon moves in Tahoe. If the feet extended beyond the edge, then everything within the 3 fingerprints contracts tumor via contact and via airspace, while everything outside of 3 fingerprints contracts tumor via contact, but does not contact tumor via airspace. These are the words of Reb Meir and Reb Shimon Tahoe. How are these 3 fingerprints measured? Reb Shimon Gamliel says the ruler is placed between the feet. Everything from the ruler and outward is Tahoe. Everything from the ruler inward, including the place of the ruler, is Tahoe.
Yeah. Avos.
Avos Daled Gimel. He used to say, do not be scornful of any person, and do not disregard anything, for you have no person without his hour. You have no person without his hour, and you have no thing without its place. Rabbi Levitus, the leader of Yavna, said, be exceedingly humble in spirit, for the anticipated end of mortal man is worse. Unintentional and intentional both are alike regarding discretion, desecration of the name. Rabbi Yishmael said, Rabbi Yukanah Baruch said, one who studied Torah in order to teach is given the means to study and to teach. But one who studied Torah in order to practice is given the means to study and to teach, to observe and to practice. And Rabbi Tzadok says, do not make the words of the Torah into a crown in order to be glorified through them, nor a spade with which to dig. So too, Hillel used to say, the one who used to use the crown will pass away. From this you derive, whoever seeks personal benefit from the words of Torah removes his life from this world.
Okay.
Oh,
Vamos.
my voice. Okay, Yud Gimel Vav. If a man divorces his wife and then remarries her, she's permitted to the other, but as forbids her. So too, if someone divorces her and then remarries her, she's permitted to the other. But if Eliezer forbids her, if the child was given in marriage by her father and then divorced, she is like an orphan during her father's lifetime. If he remarries her, all agree that she is forbidden to the other. If 2 brothers were married to 2 minor orphan sisters and the sister or husband of one of them died, she is discharged as his wife's sister. So too in the case of 2 deaf mutes. If one was an adult and one was a minor, if the minor's husband died, the minor discharges his wife's sister. If the adult's husband died, Rabbi says we teach the minor to refuse him. Gamliel says if she refused, then she did so, but if not, let her wait until she reaches adulthood. And the other will then be discharged as his wife's sister. Rabbi Yeshua says, woe unto him because of his wife, and woe unto him because of his brother's wife. He must divorce his wife and perform chalitza with his brother's wife. If someone was married to 2 minor orphans and died cohabitation or chalitza with one of them and releases her co-wife. So too in the case of 2 deaf mutes. If one was a minor and one was a deaf mute, a cohabitation with one does not release a co-wife. If one was competent and one was a deaf mute, cohabitation with a competent one releases the deaf mute, but cohabitation with deaf mute does not release the competent one. If one was an adult and one was a minor, cohabitation with adult releases the minor, but the cohabitation with the minor does not release the adult. Okay. I'm sorry, I just don't have any voice, Sean.
Right, okay, I'll take the last ones.
All right, I cannot do it. I didn't mean that. I just meant that I don't know what's going on.
You got a frog in your throat.
No, that's not it. This is like days. My poor wife, when I was singing Friday night, it was like, oh my gosh, what happened to you? She said, that's enough. That's enough. Don't continue. If one inherited 70 produce and received it as a gift, so Elia said it should be given to whoever eats it will eat it. But the sages say that sinners are not benefit, rather it should be sold to those who eat it, and the one to be distributed to anyone. If one eats 70 dodu before challah has been separated from it, he is guilty of death. The 70 cancels a loan, whether it's secured by bond or not. Credit granted by a shop is not canceled, but it was converted into a loan, it is canceled. If Yehuda says the first is canceled, the wages of a hired worker are not canceled, but if converted them to a loan, it is canceled. So Yossi says any work that must cease for the 7th year is canceled, and whatever need not cease for the 7th year is canceled. If one slaughtered a cow and distributed on New Year's Day, the month was into calculated, it's canceled. But if not, it is not canceled. The violator to do so standard any act executed by the court are not canceled. And if one loans up against a pledge and hands his bills to the court, they are not canceled. Okay.
Okay.
Be safe. Stay
Stay
well.
Wonderful day.
Thank you. Bye.